Chapter 623, First Night. As he touched the ninth law charm in his pocket, Klein adjusted his height and details regarding his appearance, making him look identical to Amirius Revelt. He walked out from the sundry room by using another door and walked down a silent corridor, back into the Governor General's office. On the way, waiters and maidservants would occasionally pass by him, but no one dared to look straight at him. Just catching sight of his admiral uniform would have them scurrying to the sides as they bowed with their heads lowered. Any person of the same height could probably find his way into the banquet hall when donning these clothes. I have to say, acting as an important figure can be easier than acting like an ordinary person. Klein continued looking straight as he maintained his somber attitude. He walked towards a path paved with black brick in an unhurried fashion. He soon heard beautiful and melodic music as elegant wall lamps were burning with gas, illuminating the dark environment. Just as Klein approached a break room, he saw a room open. A middle-aged man had been waiting there as he walked over. The man had black hair and blue eyes. His facial features somewhat resemble Amirius, but his forehead was higher and his eyebags were puffy. The corners of his mouth didn't droop. He was none other than Amirius Revelt's youngest brother, Eston Revelt. This gentleman had once served in the Navy, and he had been promoted to colonel after rendering meritorious services in the southern continent's colonies. Later, he got sick of his military career, and together with political balance, he agreed to a switch in career and became the Governor General. In the 5 to 6 years he was in Oravi, due to the importance placed on the island's location and resources, he pushed for the Revelt family to mass purchase farmland and estates, allowing him to own plenty of property. This wasn't completely obtained through his powers either. Eston and the Revelt family had paid a sufficient price, and they even took loans with the bank. It wasn't like the Balam East Coast, where land belonging to the Fasak people were forcefully bought at extremely low prices. Of course, if he was Oravi's Governor General, and his elder brother wasn't the highest commander of the Central Sanya Seas Navy, the Revelt family wouldn't have so easily convinced their targets to sell such excellent farmland and estates. Here comes the test. Klein calmly approached and stopped in front of Eston Revelt. Eston looked around and asked in a deep voice, "Have you decided on that matter?" "What matter?" Klein first felt blank before he recalled an introduction in the information he received. If Eston requests for a private chat or asks for an answer to a certain matter, tell him that an answer will be given to him when departing from Oravi. Admiral Amirius really anticipated this. I just need to watch my attitude and tone. Yes, I also need to use the unique terms and pronunciations used by lone aristocrats. Klein gently nodded and sternly said, "Wait a few more days. The answer will be given to you when departing from Oravi." Eston didn't raise any doubts as he chuckled. "You seem to be waiting for something to give you the strength to decide. That matter that Admiral Amirius has to do himself." Klein's heart stirred as he familiarly used the tone of high-level personnel. "Keep your conjectures to yourself." With that said, he took a step forward and walked towards the banquet hall. Eston Revelt focused on his elder brother's back, his expression gradually turning cold. He then shook his head slightly. After entering the banquet hall, Klein surveyed the area and walked towards the long table with food on it. From time to time, he would stop to exchange pleasantries with people who came near him. During this process, he realized that he didn't need to understand the topics raised in any conversation. All he needed to do was nod occasionally, allowing the conversation to harmoniously progress until its end. Indeed, the status of an important figure makes certain aspects of acting easy, but correspondingly, there are certain matters that can be difficult. Klein tore through one obstacle after another before finally arriving at the long table. He casually picked up a plate and told himself that Admiral Amirius liked fish, beef, and lobster, while disliking chicken and goose. Therefore, he avoided food like the roasted chicken and Backlund-styled roasted goose. He picked up some beef, fried dragonbone fish, and odora lobster with butter and cheese. As the metallic containers had their bottoms lined with asbestos, with red-hot charcoal burning under it or steaming hot water, all of the food maintained an appropriate temperature. Klein nearly broke down, destroying his persona when he took the first bite. He tried his best to maintain Admiral Amirius's image as he held his plate and chatted with the port city's member of parliament, navy suppliers, etc. He seriously listened to what they had to say, stuffing food into his mouth from time to time. He noticed that a young man in a tailcoat kept following behind him. He had neat, blonde hair that he combed backward. He had a receding hairline with light blue eyes. He looked handsome and gentlemanly. Identical to the picture, Amirius's secretary, Lewin. Klein controlled himself and didn't size him up. He wanted to fill his stomach before the end of the banquet. Once out of the Governor General's office, Klein boarded the carriage, which was guarded by bodyguards. He sat beside the wine cabinet. The blonde secretary, Lewin, followed him in. As his leather boots stepped onto the thick, soft carpet, he silently inched towards a spot opposite Klein. He sat there, but he only occupied a third of the seat. The carriage began moving as Lewin took out a stack of documents from the black briefcase he carried. "Your Excellency, this is the Oravi Naval Base's ledger for the year 1349. Klein extended his hand over and casually browsed through a few pages. What, £1 for a roll of toilet paper? The naval base's bathroom was renovated 20 times a year. Klein did some simple math and discovered all sorts of ridiculous line items. Isn't accounting such as this way too simple and obvious? I can even give them classes and specially teach them how to make claims." Klein seriously considered the attitude he should show. From his point of view, the greatest difficulty in disguising as Amirius was to fool Lewin. This wasn't to say that Governor General Aston and Miss Cynthia weren't as familiar with Admiral Amirius as his secretary. It was just that, as his younger brother, Aston might help his brother conceal the matter if he discovered something amiss after being given a hint. Similarly, as his mistress, Cynthia would be inclined to help conceal the matter for the Admiral as his dependent. Of course, the possibility that Cynthia was a spy couldn't be eliminated. There was still the matter of there being a chance of being used by a spy, but nothing could be as dangerous as Lewin, whose duty was to monitor the Admiral. "I can't expose any problems. What kind of attitude would Admiral Amirius have when faced with such a report? Go into a rage or pretend to be in a rage? No, the Oravi Naval Base personnel wouldn't be that daring to hand over a clearly problematic report as though he were blind. They must have a certain level of confidence and a tacit understanding between them." As the information didn't mention this, Klein could only make a judgment based on his experience. Furthermore, he could confirm that either the Oravi Naval Base's report was beyond Admiral Amirius's expectations or was determined to be of little importance. Just based on the schedule, it was something that could easily be dealt with. Regardless of the possibilities, I have to use the attitude that a person of high standing will usually employ. That is to not indicate my stance. Klein closed the documents and handed it back to the blonde secretary, Lewin. He said expressionlessly, "Put it on my desk." In between the lines, this sentence meant, "I'll look through it carefully." To others, it would mean something different based on their standpoints. If the Oravi Naval Base had done it without warning, this meant that the Admiral was somewhat dissatisfied and was awaiting an explanation. If the two had reached a tacit, mutual understanding on the matter, it meant that Admiral Amirius wished to obtain more favorable benefits in the matter. As for whether it would offend anyone, Klein didn't care. After all, he wouldn't be Amirius Revolt in a few days' time. He believed that a true demigod had the means to repress the anger of his subordinates. In addition, he was grateful that Amirius wasn't a demigod of the Church of Storms. Otherwise, he had to consider whether to nod his head and pass the report, or throw the document back in anger while throwing a few people in passing into the sea to feed the fishes. "Yes, Your Excellency." The blonde secretary, Lewin, didn't change his expression. He stuffed the document back into his black briefcase as though he had long expected such a response. On the way back, Klein leaned into the carriage according to Amirius Revolt's habits. He half closed his eyes as though he was contemplating certain matters, but in fact, he wasn't thinking of anything. Lewin maintained his silence and didn't speak at all. Human-height iron-black street lamps were quickly left behind as the carriage drove close to the naval base before taking a bend into a house with a garden and lawn. Just as Klein walked up the steps, a butler opened the door for him as servants lined the two sides, reverently awaiting his entrance. The living room was decorated in a very classic manner. There were oil paintings of beautiful scenery hung up, limestone statues, simple and elegant vases, etc. A faint but lingering fragrance emanated in the room, one that reached into the heart. Klein, who should have relaxed, ended up tensing up as he saw a beautiful lady walk towards him in a home gown. She looked to be in her early 20s. Her blonde hair cascaded down, and when she cast her blue eyes over, it was as though there was a glow hidden within them. While filled with gentle feminineness, there were still some remnants of her adolescence. She was none other than Admiral Amirius's mistress, Cynthia. Klein held back his discomfort and allowed Amirius's stern face to reveal a smile as he widened his arms. Cynthia threw herself into his arms and tiptoed. With her cheeks by his cheek, she whispered with a smile, "Admiral, I've already heated the water for you in the bathtub." This means she had someone monitor the end of the banquet. Being a mistress isn't something simple either. Admiral Amirius does like to take hot baths so as to relax his thoughts. In order to ignore how close their cheeks were, Klein allowed his thoughts to wander. As a straight man, he should have felt embarrassed while also being rather glad to be approached by such a beautiful member of the opposite sex. However, the temporary contract made him have zero urges. Hence, all that was left was awkwardness. "Very good," Klein praised her as he gently pushed Cynthia away, having had nowhere to place them. Knowing that the Admiral didn't like to be intimate in front of the servants, Cynthia retreated and led Klein to the second floor. He was brought into the bathroom as he prepared a bathrobe for him. After doing all of this, Cynthia instructed the servants not to come to the second floor unless they heard the bell ring. Then, she returned to the bedroom, took off all her clothes, and changed into a nightgown made of silk. Her nightgown revealed plenty of her chest. It was an alluring snow white, and deep in her cleavage was a special necklace pendant. It was like a miniaturized black rhinoceros horn about the length of a finger segment. Cynthia took off the necklace and stuffed it under her pillow. Amidst her blushing and hesitation, she left the bedroom and came outside the bathroom where the Admiral was bathing. Mustering her strength, she pulled at the handle. Creak! Her hand paused. She realized that the bathroom's door had been locked from the inside at some point in time. With a blank look, Cynthia instinctively yanked at it again. Creak, creak. The bathroom's door didn't budge an inch.